just know that pretty much that's pretty much what you can potentially only get out of it. We'll start with Jay on this. What do you give some of your pro? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jay. What you say?
I wasn't expecting to go first. That's all.
Not well. You want me to come back to you?
Nah, I got you. I got you.
All right. I wanted because I know you wanted to finish your point about the being alone point. So
yeah, but I'd say this goes to the pros and cons of being in a committed relationship as well, because like being alone is it can be a double-edged sword if you're not careful with it, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but I know me personally, I'm extremely harsh with myself, and I'm extremely like initially I was thinking like, oh, I'm just being brutally honest with myself because no one else will. But then you end up creating this false narrative in your head, like this is you're not doing but well, or you essentially plug real quick, you create an echo chamber for yourself, and you might reinforce bad habits, bad practices, all this other stuff. Whereas
do you feel like that's
sometimes having
self-sabotage?
that second, yes, self-sabotage, and sometimes having that second party who is willing to be honest with you, who is objectively seeing you, because for real, when somebody first meets you, they don't know you. They are making their assessments based on what you show them, what you present to them, all of that sort of stuff. And if you are being honest, like we have said, then they can see you objectively and make their own judgments. And one of the pros I'd say of being in a relationship was the what's it called, the bolstering or the uplifting of the other person, whether it's you uplifting your partner or your partner uplifting you, which is something that I didn't realize I needed until I was in a committed relationship. Right? Like you tell yourself all the time, like, oh, I have to do all these things, or I'm not doing well, or I haven't achieved in the ways I need to achieve, so I'm failing. And then somebody who doesn't know you and just sees what you bring to the table can be like, actually, you're doing better than 60% of the folks out there. So just keep pushing, keep grinding, you'll make it. And you can do the same thing for another person. But I think a lot of the pros and cons are just two sides of the same coin. It's balancing acts, whatever aspect of a relationship you're talking about, whether it's communication, whether it's honesty, whether it's the physical relationship, whether it's self-love, whether it's love languages, all that sort of stuff.
I definitely agree with that. From a personal perspective, that was something that I never expected in my marriage. Someone that looks at me more than I look at myself. And that was something that, and to this day, she still does. And there are things she tells me that I'm like, but she sees something in me that I got to see within myself. So I feel like that is a major pro, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jay. Jamie, go ahead, man. What are your thoughts?
So I actually made notes about this, man. I had to plan this out, man. So I'm gonna start off with the cons. Go with the pros. Okay. I starting off bad and ending off well. So I'm gonna start off. So one of the cons of being in a committed relationship could be, that's the word, could be depression and stress. You see, the thing is, when you're in a committed relationship, not all committed relationships are created equally. Some of them stem from the wrong reasons. Maybe you guys were into it for the wrong reasons. You ended up dating someone for the wrong reasons, someone you're not compatible with, someone that's not good for you. And what ends up happening is over time, it's going to create stress, a lot of tension, a lot of toxicity in that relationship. Because I've been in a toxic relationship before, it actually made me worse than anything else. I've been in a good one and in a bad one. And let me tell you, being in a bad relationship, having to worry about finances all the time, having to worry about coming home to someone that's going to yell at you and belittle you, it's not fun, man. It would be depression. One of them could be depression, stress. Another one is you got to work things out. You can't just leave this. This is a committed relationship or potentially a marriage. You can't just leave it. You have to work things out. And sometimes some of us don't know how to work things out, you know? So now you got to come up with those skills of, okay, I got to communicate and I got to meet them in the middle and we have to resolve this issue. So now that's another thing that you have to do. You can't just leave it like everything else. You have to like actually do something about it. Another one is it's no longer about yourself. This is no longer about you anymore. This is you two as a couple. So when you're making financial decisions or anything, it's for the two of you, not just you. So you got to keep the other person in mind at all times. So now we're going to go into the pros, because I like talking about the pros more than anything else. So the pros, vulnerability. And this is something that I experienced myself in a relationship, because I'm a person, I don't like talking about my issues or certain things in my past that get me emotional, whatever it is. The only people I've ever talked about these things with were my exes, my girlfriends, people like that. And so just being vulnerable with someone is just a beautiful thing. Like, you mutually being vulnerable with someone, you can't beat that. Like, they know all your secrets, you know all their secret things like that. That's beautiful, you know. Excitement. They say the happiest a man will ever be is with one woman, and that's true. I believe in that. If you find yourself one great woman, that's better than 100 women. And so I've experienced that before, where I settled with a woman and I was the happiest I've ever been. We went on adventures and did great things together. It's just beautiful sharing beautiful moments with someone, you know. And lastly, family. You have that sense of family, because this is something I'm going through right now. So where when you first move out of your parents, I feel like there's a certain element in your life that's missing. That element of family, like having a family, like having like a mom, a dad, things like that. When you move out, now it's all you up until you get married, you meet a woman, and then you have kids with them. Now you're in another family. You fulfilled that after so many years of being away from that. You finally have that again. It's just a beautiful thing. I see my friends having families. It's just a beautiful thing that comes from being in a committed relationship.
Yeah. You made a good point as far as depression and anxiety. I think that's a very good point. Speaking from experience, I used to feel depression and anxiety being in a bad relationship was my fault. And you know, it took me a long time to get out of that period, you know, of depression and anxiety. So I feel like I'm glad you brought that up and made that aware, because some people today are going through that and feeling it's their fault, you know, and sometimes it's not. You know, sometimes depression and anxiety is a learning lesson. You know, what are you going to learn from it? Go ahead, Javi. Oh, I think
Sorry.
you're. Oh, there you go. There you go.
So yeah, I mean, definitely some to piggyback off of what Jamie said. Obviously, I was going through a divorce, and I think that you lose a sense of self because you have an identity in a relationship, right? So when you come out of a relationship, it's like you have to redefine yourself. Like, who am I now? Like, you know, and so that is definitely a con. Because you built a life with somebody, you know, even if you're not married, you're in a relationship, you become part of a pair, and you know yourself. That's like one of your identities, right? Like for me, it was like wife. Like, what does that mean? And then coming out of a marriage, now it's like I'm still a mother, but now I'm a co-parenting single mother. And so, you know, redefining who you are outside the relationship that you were in could definitely be a con. I think that another con could be the how do you say that? Like I'm like, I want to say like your development as a person, you know what I'm saying? Because once again, kind of like similar, but
your progression as a person.
Right, exactly. It's like it's almost like a growing pain that you go through when you're, you know, in a relationship or out of a relationship. It kind of like a con.
The potential of growing apart. The potential of growing apart. The potential of growing apart. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think the one more con I would say would be the values, because sometimes you are good in a relationship, like you are attracted to the person, you like the person, you guys get along, but values are major. And if you guys aren't on the same page, that could be, it comes up. It comes up. It is bound to come up at some point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think for me, the pros are definitely what Jamie said, family, like having someone who kind of has your back, who's in your corner, who you could grow with, who you could go through this crazy thing called life. Like, you know, so many people, singles are like, they're kind of like free falling because they don't really have that like partner. Yeah, you have your family, you know, hopefully you have, you know, parents, you might have siblings, you have friends, but there's a different grounding that I feel a relationship provides that like your friends can't give you, like your siblings can't give you, your parents can't give you. So that's definitely a positive for me. Just that support system, you know, one, two, the family, like, you know, having a child, you know, I have a child and it's the most amazing thing in the world. I love being a mother. And I love that relationship that I have with my son. And even though his father and I are no longer together, we still have to communicate because we have this child. So we're able to have some common ground because of the family that we had together. And I think that the vulnerability also leads to personal growth, because when you are emotionally like fertile, you see that like that space for growth and innovation and creativity kind of like in your professional life. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, love, not to be like corny, but that love and that feeling that like, oh my God, you know, whatever, that glow that you get from that intimacy, emotionally, sexual intimacy, it fertilizes the ground for other things in your life. You know what I'm saying? You have a great sexual night or what have you, and be like, oh my God, boom, eureka. Like whatever.
Eureka.
So like, you know what I'm saying? And it can also happen the other way too. Like when you break up, how many artists have these amazing songs because they had their heart broken? So I feel like relationships can be a breeding ground for creativity, innovation, and other things professionally in your life. That's it for me.
I do agree with that completely. I am glad you brought up the point of value, because I feel like so much value is put into the physicality and with the way someone looks, that, you know, it's taken away from who you really are. You know what I mean? As a person, what is that person bringing to the table? You know what I mean? Just that value of who you are, and hearing your story as far as like you going through a divorce, and you know I talk about how long you're with that person, but you know that X amount of time,
10 years married, 13 years together.
That is 13 years of, you know, and we'll talk about it in a second, you know, getting your this kind of goes into getting your confidence after a breakup, but you kind of got to recalibrate to where like, how can I make
you have to?
Well, yeah. I mean, well, some people don't recalibrate.
Yeah.
Some people, like Jamie said, some people like he will get divorced tomorrow and go have another girl in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? That's just
they're not dealing with
you're not dealing with
whatever. I mean, it's impossible. Like that's like, and that will come up at some point, because you either implode or you explode. So even if you don't deal with it at that point, at some point, it's like you said, you're bringing somebody said on here, bringing that old baggage into a new relationship.
That was Shatoria. Yeah. So I do agree on, you know, the value and recalibrating and finding who you are. And as far as that eureka,
Y'all know what I'm talking about. I know I'm not the only one.